Hello, everybody.
Hi guys. Um, Thank you guys for coming in today for the professional branding live chat. We're gonna get started in a few minutes, but let's go ahead and introduce ourselves so you know who we are today. My name is Dory. I'm a career advisor at the Office of Career Services located on UIC's campus. So my role as a career advisor is to offer one-on-one sessions, resume reviews, mock interviews, things of that nature. So I will be putting a phone number for you guys to call if you would like to make an appointment with a career advisor after attending this live chat. We are still doing appointments via phone and via Zoom.
And hi, guys. My name is Sandy. I'm from the Student Employment Office, and I am the Job Location and Development Program Coordinator. I also do career advising and appointments with students in regards to off-campus career-related employment.
Okay, so we're going to be getting started in a few minutes. So let's just talk. We're going to talk with you guys about the expectations of the chat today, as far as how it's going to go. First and foremost, we just ask that everybody remain respectful, and give each other a chance to ask a question and give us the adequate time to respond. We are asking that you guys leave your cameras off, and your microphones on mute to eliminate background noise, and just so that we can focus on answering these questions and we can get all the information out to you guys. Anything else you want to add, Sandy?
Well, let's explain how this session is going to go. So as Dory said, your audio and videos are going to be off. However, please feel free to submit any questions through the Zoom group chat over here. Make sure that your settings are set to everyone, or pick one of the hosts to talk to, and then we will be picking questions from the chat and then answering them as they go. So that's how the session is going to look like, okay? If you have any questions, again, feel free to put it through the chat right there.
So do you guys have any questions for us before we get started? Does anybody want to test out the chat feature, making sure it's working for you guys?
Or even just say like, hi. Hi would be okay too.
Let us know you're here. Okay. Okay, welcome, Rebecca.
Welcome. Okay, we got a grad student here. Do we got some undergrads in here too? Okay, while we get those questions rolling in, Dory, why don't you actually go ahead and talk about, the basis of this session, like what is a brand and why is a digital brand, important?
Definitely. So if you have gotten the chance to follow our webinars, the last one that we put up was about professional branding. And you hear a lot about that when you hear about creating your LinkedIn profile or branching into your field of choice. But we wanted to kind of go and see what some of your questions were in regards to branding and answer just some basic Q&A for you. So to go with what Sandy said about what exactly a brand is, the actual definition of a brand is that it's a marketing tool that identifies one product or service as distinct from those of others. So I like to think about restaurants, stores, certain types of fitwear, clothing items. There are different types of them, but they all have a distinct brand. And some brands just stand out to us more than others. So the example I used in the webinar was we're all very familiar with McDonald's. We're familiar with the Golden Arches. It's the basis of their campaign, Ronald McDonald, the smiles, the M for McDonald's. And we're all affiliated with that brand. So whenever we see those Golden Arches, we know there's a McDonald's, and we affiliate that in our minds with what they're specialized for. Their Big Macs, their McDoubles, their McChickens, all these type of things. But what is it about McDonald's, and maybe one of you all can chime in so we can get this started, that makes it so much stand out to us much more than, say, for instance, Burger King or Five Guys. Other places that offer the same type of food, around the same quality, but we are more familiar and we will be more inclined to go to a McDonald's. So kind of what about their brand drives us to want to eat there versus other places? So that when you're building your digital brand, when you're building your professional brand, you are branding yourself as different than your counterparts, which in this case for you guys will be your classmates and your colleagues. So what makes you stand out so much more in your field than the other people in your field that are doing similar things or are on similar career paths? So that is something that I kind of wanted to go over with you guys today. Kind of to go back to the last question, does anybody want to answer that for me? Like, what makes McDonald's stand out to you as opposed to like Burger King, White Castles, the Happy Meal? Okay, that's a really good one.
No, for real, yeah.
That is. So that is a part of their brand that distinguishes them from other restaurants. Their Happy Meal, I think a lot of their marketing does go towards children. So children are often inclined to have their parents stop at a McDonald's, or ask for a McDonald's meal. Anybody else can think of anything particularly about McDonald's that draws you to them more than maybe if you were to do Burger King or Five Guys or other burger restaurants that we're familiar with?
Go ahead and submit your comments in the group chat. We'll be here. And then as a reminder for those new participants that have just joined, we are doing a live chat Q&A session on the topic of digital branding. We ask that you keep your audio and visual off to keep, so that you can focus on us and there's no background noise and whatnot. And so if you want to put in your questions in the group chat, we'll be picking them from the group chat to answer. All right, so then I guess while we're waiting for people to submit their questions, Dory, can you speak about what are like some good intro tips on how to start building your brand? Like what would you say the first step for students would be?
So I would think the most important step is to evaluate what your brand is in the current moment. How are people currently viewing you? How are you being seen by your friends, your family, your supervisors, people that are with you on a day-to-day basis? And when I was speaking with one of my colleagues about this, she brought up a good point about a student that she remembered from her class who was always taking initiative, always helping her set up and do things whenever she was facilitating. And so that helped her to remember that student as reliable, dependable, very, eager to be productive and learn. And she was going for teaching. And so if someone were to ask, how would they describe this student? That's what came to mind from my colleague. So I think one of the best ways is to maybe, when you have downtime, ask your friends and family, how would you all describe me? What makes me special? What makes me different? And see if it's more of a positive personality trait, like your dedication, your hard work, your reliability, or maybe it could be a trait that to you is positive, but maybe to a professional perspective may not be. So if someone says, well, you're just the life of the party, that could be great, but more on a social aspect. From a professional aspect, you might want to change how you carry yourself to be attentive or easy to talk to, comfortable to be around, so that it's viewed as more a positive as opposed to a negative. I would also start, assessing your brand that you're trying to build. So looking up those key components of what makes that brand special, so you know how to start building it yourself.
Right, cool. That was actually really informative. Thank you for that. Again, we have some new participants that have joined. So hi, everyone. Welcome to the session. Again, this is a live chat Q&A session on the topic of digital branding. So if you guys have any questions in relation to how to build your brand, what is a brand, what do we do, put it in the group chat over here and we'll pick the questions to answer. I also have a question too, Dory. I know there's a lot of like websites and applications that you can use nowadays because social media and being online in general is just really important. What would you say is the, I guess, top websites and apps for students to look at?
That's a great question, Sandy. I think first and foremost, the most important website that you're going to use is LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a professional networking website, and a lot of professionals use it to interact with other professionals in their fields. That's really a great way to get noticed if you're doing something industry specific. So if you are doing marketing and you're building your LinkedIn profile and you're putting your marketing projects on there, your awards that you're winning, things that you're involved in that highlight your marketing skills, you'll find that people will start to look at your profile and look at your attributes, your skills, what you specialize in, and want to connect with you based on that. So that's also a good way to assess if your brand is working. Are you getting some traffic on these digital sites? Are people viewing your profiles? Are they reaching out to you to maybe ask questions or get your advice on something? Even people that might be trying to pitch to you a product or a service that their company offers, they'll tend to go to people that seem to have a heavy traffic and a lot of people, and they're influential in their fields. Some other good platforms to use are Twitter and Instagram. I know a lot of recruiters and a lot of people do look at tweets, and they'll follow people based off of what they're tweeting, especially if they're highlighting relevant things in that field in the now. That's very attractive to recruiters and other people who are looking at you because it shows that you take pride in your brand and you take pride in keeping it relevant. If you're into arts, maybe more digital media, if you may be in the field of design, Instagram is a great way to start marketing yourself. Having a professional Instagram page with your pictures, your videos, your photos of your work is really great, because a lot of times you'll have other people in that similar platform using that site. One of the other popular platforms that's industry specific is GitHub. I don't know if any of you have heard of that, but I know for a lot of people in the tech field and computer science, they use that to upload work as well. So there's a lot of platforms. You can't even use Facebook in some capacity. I always like to tell students, though, to be careful with Facebook because it is social media. So it's meant to be a social site. People have, created business pages, and you can reach certain people, but be careful with that. And I always recommend to create 2 separate profiles. So have a business profile where you strictly talk about your business, strictly talk about your field, and all of the content on there is for that. And then have maybe a private social profile where it's a little bit more relaxed. Keeping them separate, keeping your privacy settings up to date on your personal profile will help prevent people from finding those discrepancies or unwanted things in other profiles that maybe are not professional, because that is also a part of your brand and your image, what you do outside of work and outside of your field in your spare time. So even limiting certain content on your personal profile will also be wise, so that if the two ever did happen to meet each other, if someone saw your personal profile before your professional one, they're not surprised or taken aback by what they're seeing.
Thank you for that answer. It was very comprehensive. And I hope that a lot of students are aware and familiar with these platforms, since they are very, very commonly used. I think a common question I get from students when I see students is, do I need to start working on this like now? Because I tend to see students in their freshman or sophomore year, and they're like, do I need to start working on it now? Is it really necessary? And I always say to them, like, the sooner you start, the better, right? The sooner you start developing your brand and developing those skills and just developing how to project yourself and network, you're going to be better for it towards the end. So when you're a junior, senior, looking for those career-related internships and full-time jobs, you're already an expert on it. You're not, you're already kind of one step up above the rest in that aspect. So my opinion or my advice is, if you're kind of like wary on it, or if you're like, I don't know if I'm gonna start it yet, just go ahead and do it. Just go ahead and start it, because at the very least, you're on that first stepping stone. And this is also something that Dory mentioned in her webinar. Don't leave it unfinished. So don't just start it and then leave it for like a year or whatever, because that's also a very common thing that I encounter with students. At least finish it for the stage you are right now, and then come back to update it every so often.
You brought up a really good point, Sandy, with that. Start your freshman year. I think what kind of scares students or makes them hesitant to build this brand is they don't feel they have anything to actually build. You're just getting started, you're a freshman, you may not know what you want to do in your field, but the whole idea of a brand is that it is a work in progress. So as Sandy mentioned, build it for where you're at. Okay, you're a freshman on UIC's campus. What do you want people to know about you in this freshman year? What kind of, interactions are you trying to have? So maybe in your freshman year, you want to connect with, Greek life, academic things, become social, know more about your professors, just be noticed as a great academic student. There's still a way to do that with your LinkedIn page and with your media and your digital branding, to that it shows progression. Even when we think of brands in the media, every brand has had some progression. There used to be a time and place where people really didn't wear Adidas or they didn't wear Nike. It wasn't the most popular thing at the time. But as we have seen, like, both of these brands have evolved to really be in our face and push that they are the ones to go with. So as you build your brand, as you learn what works for you, you'll start reaching people as you grow and as your brand grows, like any brand. When we think of McDonald's, when we think of these places, stores like Macy's, things like Tiffany's, they all had an attribute that they started off with that made them different. And as they grew, their brands grew. So your brand is likely to improve and change and grow as you get more into your field down the line, but it is wise to start building it as soon as possible. And as Sandy mentioned, complete it. You wouldn't be surprised, or you might be, how many people have LinkedIn profiles, but they haven't updated their information. So then they're applying for positions, or they're trying to reach out to people, and even though they may have a strong brand, it's outdated. The key to being a successful brand is keeping up with the times, keeping up with what is going to draw people to you. Perfect example. I know I use Nike a lot, but it's a big brand. When a lot of things started happening as far as community-wise and socialistic-wise, with things happening with the NFL and everything like that, Nike played to that, to play to the target audience that they wanted to at the time. Who was more likely to come out and support them? So they transitioned, the face and what they were doing as far as who represented their brand to fit what the need was at the time. And as a personal brand, you have to do that as well. As your field evolves, you have to evolve with it. And if your brand is solid, but your brand is solid from 10 years ago, the person that's coming to check you out and validate you, they're going to see that you have a great brand, but they're also going to see that it's outdated. And that's going to cause questions into how much can you contribute to the now in your field. So that is something to keep in mind.
That's really great. Thanks for that. We do have our first question from the group chat, so I'm just going to go ahead and read it out loud. This is from Louise. How do I know I'm going to the right path towards my career? If I'm reading that correctly, if you're asking like what sort of things you can do to build your digital brand in regards to in regards to like your future career, think about like what you do during your career that would be relevant. For example, if you're in a creative field, then perhaps starting up an Instagram and doing a digital portfolio would be your next best steps towards you know, being related to your field. As Dory mentioned before, if you're like in engineering or if you do software type stuff, then maybe you want to start a GitHub then, so that you can you know, store your projects in there and show examples and things of that nature. So think about what you're doing and like what's important in your career, and then think about the platforms that would help you maximize your brand in that aspect.
And to follow up with what Sandy was saying, I actually did kind of put some side notes to this, because how do you know if your brand is reaching your target audience? How do you know if you're going on the right track? When we're talking about digital branding, which it was what you guys are going to be doing a lot more, that's a little bit easier to track than person to person. When we meet people in person, sometimes we can see how they feel about us. We can get, you know, kind of an understanding, but we don't know if the pitch that we've done or the marketing that we've done has stuck with them. Digitally, it's a little bit different. So like, for instance, when you're starting to build your brand on LinkedIn or on these platforms and you're marketing it, you'll start to notice that your brand may start to get more traffic. So your pages may start to have more visitors. People may start to visit your page or check it out more frequently. You may get more subscribers. Things like that. On certain platforms, you can track that. And the other thing to track is, who are these subscribers? Who are these people checking you out? Are they people who are in your industry, in your future career field? If that is the case, that's great. Are they classmates, other people that can vouch for you? That's also great. If you're getting people from like all different types, if it's not industry specific, if it just seems like it's everywhere, then that's the time to kind of go back to the drawing board and make sure that the content you're putting out is going to the right target audience that you want to reach. And that may take some time. That's not going to definitely happen overnight. Kind of like Sandy said, you're going to have to start with small steps. So building your profile, starting to upload your work, making sure you're maintaining it and keeping the most current work, following the most current trends. If you are doing all of those prequels, then you will start to see your target audience pay a lot more attention to you. You may even start to receive messages from recruiters or employers in your field if your brand is doing what it should be doing. Now, that's not going to be 100% guaranteed, but if your page has the key components on it that they're looking for, and if you are showing that you are industry specific and that you are catering to it, and you have a strong, relevant, up-to-date brand, then those things will come in as well, because you will be very surprised how many recruiters do go to things like LinkedIn or Instagram, depending on the field, looking for new talent. So that's also a good thing to consider. You may receive referrals, so people may start asking to be in your network, or they may come to your page, inbox you with questions, depending on how you're being perceived. If you do start to get those positive things, then that means your brand is starting to really take off. And just even if it doesn't happen right away, these things do take time. But the more you keep everything updated and the more that you stay on top of it, the more likely you are going to get those desired outcomes.
All right, cool. Thanks for that. I thought that was a really great answer, and I hope it did answer your question, Louise. Thank you for submitting the first question. As a reminder for anyone who's joined in recently, this is a live chat Q&A session on the topic of digital branding. So please submit your questions to the Zoom group chat, and then we'll be picking questions from there to answer. Let's see here. So while we wait for some questions, let me see. I think it's great that you talked a lot about how you know that your digital brand is working in terms of receiving those like positive affirmations by like recruiters and whatnot and stuff like that. In terms of like, let's say like people want to test it out, right? People want to see if their brand is like working. You had mentioned earlier about getting your friends or your family to kind of check you out online and stuff like that. Is there anything that people should be striving for when they're doing these sort of testings, that the things that they should be sort of hitting?
Yes, so that's a really great question. I would say the easiest answer to the question is presentation. How are you presenting yourself online? So when your family members look at things, when your friends go to look at things, I would meet up with them and I would maybe talk with them and see, what vibe did you get from my online profile? What did you think about it? And you want to aim for clear, concise answers. So if they can clearly see what you're trying to brand yourself as, if it's apparent what those things are, then you are striving to maintain your brand. If it's not so clear, if they really can't tell you much about it, it could be a sign to go and reevaluate and make sure that it's clear what you're trying to market, because that can be hard. Talking with your professors or people in the field, having them check out your websites and having them check things out and getting the constructive feedback to see, how it looks. We often do have students come in and they'll come in for like a cover letter review or a resume review, and then they'll ask us to look at their LinkedIn. And what I tend to find is sometimes students don't know what to put on there, so they'll leave stuff out. And then I have to, I'm looking at a resume that has like this great project and stuff that they did. And I'm like, how come this isn't on your LinkedIn page? And sometimes students just don't know that they can add those things, or those things are relevant to the target audience they're trying to reach. So I think that is also something to keep in mind when you're maintaining it and trying to see if it's being relevant. When you say brand, so this is from Medina. When you say brand, are we talking about a business, or can you yourself be seen as a brand? You yourself are your brand. So whatever you would like to be known for, however you would like to market yourself, is technically your brand. I use business brands as an example of how to kind of know what a brand's purpose is. So most businesses do have a brand. So a brand mascot, for example, would be Tony the Tiger. He's the brand of Frosted Flakes. Ronald McDonald is the branding person for McDonald's, but they do have other things that differentiate them and make them stand out overall as a brand. So yes, you yourself are your brand as a person, but there should be characteristics about yourself that make you distinct and make you different than your counterparts. I hope that answers your question, Medina. I hope that helps to clear that up. And it looks like, Sandy, we have a question from Stefan. I hope I said that right. How can we stand out from everyone else online or in person? So that's a good question, Sandy. What do you think about that? Because
I think, okay, so in terms of standing out from the other person, I don't place as much importance as being different than everyone else. I would rather prioritize my own experiences and what I can offer, because how important that is going to be different from employer to employer. Some employers might place more importance on, let's say, your skills and what you've done in the past, and some employers might place more importance in what your beliefs are or what your ideals are. So it's more important for myself to be, I guess, authentic and to show that authentically within my digital brand, so that it's being portrayed in the right way, because in general, everyone is different from each other, right? And if you're trying too hard to be unique and be different, you may not be as authentic as you should be.
And I'm glad you said that, Sandy, because I kind of got a little bit stuck, because we are telling you like to brand yourself and make yourself stand out. That is important, but being authentic and being yourself is just as important. When we kind of say make yourself stand out, think about your field and what are some of the things that are required for everyone to have. How can you market yourself as having those things differently than someone else, so that you're just noticed more by people? Two people could have on the same shirt, but one person may be noticed over the other person based off of what they wore the shirt with, how they styled the shirt, their accessories, their makeup. There's other external factors that will make something stand out without having to say, cut the shirt up. or dye the shirt another color. So, you know, when Sandy says be authentic, don't change yourself in order to try to achieve a certain type of brand or image, because you don't want to come off as not being real also. You know, you don't want to come off as being not 100% genuine with your brand. So I think in order to make yourself stand out, I think that's something to sit down with yourself. What makes me different than other people in my field? What makes me a better candidate? Those are questions that you'll have to answer yourself, because once you have that clear answer, you can execute it. Um, I find that one of the hardest things for students when we do mock interviews or when we do things like branding and networking is them talking about themselves. That's the hardest question sometimes to answer. Tell me about yourself, especially in a professional capacity sometimes, and especially talking about your accomplishments and bragging about them is sometimes hard for students. But it is important to know your marketable distinctions, so that when someone is asking you these questions, what makes you different? Why should I hire you? Why should I choose you over all of the 25 other candidates? You can market yourself as being different but authentic. I hope that answers your question, Stephanie.
Yeah, and these are some great questions, so please
They
keep them
really
coming.
are.
Yeah, they really are. I really like them too. So please keep them coming. We're gonna pick them from the chat as they come in. And meanwhile, while we're waiting for questions, oh, and again, if there's anyone who just joined or is new to the session, we're gonna be taking questions from the Zoom group chat. So go ahead and just submit them through text, and we'll pick them from there to answer. So I think we've talked a lot about establishing yourself, using your digital brand to represent yourself and whatnot. But I think another great purpose of digital branding is also informational interviewing. Can you tell me more about that, Dory?
Yes, so if you did get a chance to view our webinar, one of the tips that I have for developing the digital brand was to do an informational interview. So some of you may have heard that term before, some of you may not have. So I'll give a brief overview. An informational interview is an interview that you conduct with a professional that works in your industry or field, or they're in a field that you may want to go into. So an informational interview can be done with a professor, it can be done with an employer, it can be done with anyone really who's in a field that you want to go into. The really great thing about that is you can ask those burning questions in an informational interview. You can get a lot of knowledge from it, and it's also opening a direct line between you and someone in your field. So a lot of times you can meet for an informational interview, have coffee, do a phone interview, and then connect with this person on LinkedIn, and then follow them. And then when they follow you back, as you update things, now you have already reached one person. And then they can essentially talk to more people about you, or they're following you. So then if someone posts something, they remember you because you took the time out to sit and talk with them, but also then you followed up with them and you've been keeping up with their professional affiliations in life as well. So when you do this, it's really good to make sure you do also connect online and that you also follow up. And then also make sure that the informational interview is just that. It isn't a job interview. It isn't a place to slide your resume across the table and try to figure something out. It is to sit there and learn more about that person and then the work that they do. And just on a less extensive level, people like to talk about their work. So, you know, it is a little bit of an ego stroke if you want to look at it like that, but people like to talk about their work. They like to know that people are interested in what they do. So just by even expressing interest, that can make someone's day. Because sometimes people don't really take the time out to sit and say, you know, I really think your job as a career advisor is awesome. Will you sit and have coffee with me and kind of tell me a little bit about that? Because I'm thinking about going into higher ed myself, and I feel like I could gain some valuable insight from you. Already started off a really great relationship. And then you also are branding yourself as someone who is curious and wants to become educated about this field, as opposed to having a more passive attitude. By doing an active informational interview, it's more of active. This is something that excites me. I want to get all the information that I can about this. So that is something that's also really great to do, if that answers the question.
Yes, it definitely did. And in fact, we have a new question from Missy in the chat as well. And I think it actually does tie into the whole informational interviewing thing. What advice do you have for students when they feel uncomfortable reaching out to professionals? Some students may feel like they are bothering the professional, or the student doesn't have a way to help the professional. In my opinion, if you are uncomfortable reaching out to professionals, actually reaching out online is a much easier way than having to like go to them physically, or like pick up the phone, or like going to meet them in person or whatnot. So take advantage of your online resources. Like, for example, you can use LinkedIn to connect with professionals in your field by sending them an invitation, or connecting with them, or chatting with them. And that way you kind of use, just the text version to kind of ease your way into it as an introduction. And I feel like it is a lot less pressure to do that than to do it through the phone or in person. And then my other advice would be, don't feel uncomfortable reaching out, because whoever you're reaching out to has the choice to either ignore you or answer you. So this is, it's not bothering them, because they do have the choice to answer you or not. They don't have to talk to you, but if they want to, right, that's going to be your way of knowing, like, hey, this is a successful reach out.
And I agree with Sandy on that part. And I think part of that comes from how people may be networking. I shouldn't be asking this person for something. I feel kind of bad asking them to do this for me. If you're going into an informational interview with an intention of learning and intention of educating yourself, it's kind of like Sandy said, the person is either gonna, accept that offer to give you some valuable information, or they're not. So don't ever feel like you're bothering someone by trying to obtain knowledge, because that is the basis of what this is for. You're obtaining knowledge about your field, obstacles you may have, ways to improve your presence in your field. And any professional in the field who has gone through the same type of outline for their career professional life would usually be more than happy to help someone, because someone may have helped them along the line. So having those advocates is very important, and most people are understanding that. If you happen to someone say, I don't really have time to talk about that, or they don't feel comfortable because they don't know you, don't take that personal. People have busy schedules, and people also may have had some negative experiences with informational interviews before. As me and Sandy mentioned, this is not a place to go and ask for a job, or to see if a person's company is hiring, which is the take that some people go into it with. And that can be a letdown for the person who agreed to do the informational interview, because I'm pretty sure you're not the first person that has done that to them. So they make sure when you're conducting these that you are going into it with an educational mindset and a mindset for learning more. And I think as long as you build a positive relationship off, from the beginning, from the first message that you send, I don't see it being an issue. And then too, if people are still just uncomfortable, I agree with Sandy. Online is the best way to kind of get that information without having the pressure of having to meet up. Some people may not, this is a perfect example. You can't really meet a person in an informational interview. You could do Zoom, you could do phone, or you could do strictly email. So there are those options to obtain that knowledge that way. And it is still an informational interview, even if it's not face-to-face. I hope that answered your question, Missy.
Yeah, it was a great question. Thanks for that. So then let's see here. We do have a new participant. So thanks for joining. Again, go ahead and submit any questions you may have about digital branding in the Zoom group chat, and we will be answering them as they come in. So I think you mentioned this earlier in the session, Dory, about keeping your, I guess, your professional and personal brands separate. What would be a good way to do that, I guess, for students who are looking to have both like a public and private Instagram, I guess, for example?
Thank you. That is a really great question. I know we did a workshop, Sandy. I posted and regretted around the time things kind of got crazy on campus. But that was an actual really great representation of what happens when you don't keep those things separate. My best advice is, as mentioned earlier, try to create a professional profile as well as a personal one. If you're using something like Instagram or if you're using something like Facebook, making sure that you utilize the privacy settings for your personal account so that in the event someone looks you up, they're not getting your pictures from spring break. They're getting the post that's relevant to your field. They're looking at articles. Twitter's a little bit harder because I don't know too many people who have like 2 separate Twitters. But I would just be careful with what you post. Be mindful about it. Social media is a great platform to have your voice be heard, but there are some things that don't look the best when you're trying to build a professional brand. So, if you have a lot of obscenities on your profile, nudity, anything that could be viewed as classist, racist, anything like that, those are not things that you want to put up. And if you have them either by accident or because someone shared it on your page, try to clean those things up and get them off before you invite certain people to be able to view your content. That's another thing to keep in mind. Be careful who you let friend you on certain platforms, especially if it is someone who you work with in a professional manner. Making sure you limit what they can see is important as well, because you want them to see the positives of your brand, not the negatives. And I would just say being mindful about the platforms that you use for certain things as well. Most people's professional platform is LinkedIn. They really maybe don't necessarily need a professional like a business Facebook or a business Twitter, but do be mindful that if someone Googles you, if someone does look at things, they will be liable to find what you're putting up there. And this is a good question to follow up on that, Sandy, from Tanya Harrison. Are employers more inclined these days to look at potential candidates' social media? Yes, they are. So I previously stated we did do a workshop on this, and 60% of employers do check out a social media page. So that's quite a few. And about 50% continue to check it after someone's been hired. So that's why some of the tips from the branding about using particular hashtags on your Twitter, on your Facebook to get you noticed, that can also be negative depending on what you're posting. So this is the rule of thumb. If you wouldn't want your grandma to see it, you probably don't want an employer to see it. So if you think your parents may not like it, or people that you work closely with, like supervisors or people who are over you, if they're not going to like it, more than likely an employer or a recruiter is not going to like it either. So just being careful about what you post and how actively you talk about things. Now, I think we're all guilty of maybe accidentally posting something we shouldn't have, but cleaning it up, making sure that you're careful about things is important. And that goes back to who you're friending as well, because screenshots and shared statuses have gotten people, fired, or they've lost positions because of that. And this comes from Anna. Does it look bad to not be on social media? It can. Yes, it can. To have no type of social media presence, it can look very daunting because then it's what do you have to hide? But if you have some social media, like if you have a LinkedIn and then maybe you have an Instagram page, but you just keep your Facebook private, you have some type of social media. And also keeping in mind too, when it says to not have, we're talking about social media. But if you have a LinkedIn profile, if you have a GitHub, if you have professional profiles, that's okay as well. I think when people say candidates don't find anything, they literally don't find anything. Don't find a LinkedIn, nothing affiliated with this person. So it's almost like this person is a ghost. And of course, if you're applying for a job or internship, you're not a ghost. So why don't you have these platforms set up? And doing a Google search of yourself is really helpful as well. I mentioned that in the webinar because then you can see what pops up, what is attached to your name. Because a lot of employers will often just do a Google search on someone or just go and type their name in a social media bar to see what pops up and what they may be potentially affiliated with. I hope that answered your question, Anna. Thank you for that. Those are some great questions.
Yeah, that was a really great answer too, Dory. That was quite good. I think, in my opinion, I would say at least have a LinkedIn set up because LinkedIn is not just for digital branding, but it also could be used for a lot of other purposes, such as finding jobs. Like finding jobs on LinkedIn is super easy. A lot of recruiters and a lot of companies do use it to recruit. So at the very least, some people might prefer not to be on social media, which is totally fine. But if you're looking for jobs and networking, then LinkedIn might be a good, at least the one social media platform you may want to use for that purpose.
And to piggyback off of that, Sandy, keeping it updated is also important. So, if you do have a LinkedIn, but you choose not to have an Instagram or a Facebook, and you just choose to have LinkedIn and Twitter, make sure that it's often kept updated as well, so that it looks like it's the most recent things. Because to just have a profile with nothing updated on it, that can also kind of raise a red flag as well. Because how in tune are you to what's going on in the current markets? Are you keeping up with current industry trends? We kind of mentioned that earlier. So it's going to take trial and error to make sure you have the right balance of social media presence. But if you're actively checking it and making sure that you're actively cleaning it up on a regular basis, it shouldn't be a difficult issue.
All right, so then go ahead and keep submitting your questions through the chat. These have been some great questions so far. Let's see here. You did, on your webinar, you did like 10 tips in terms of digital branding. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, or some tips that haven't been shared yet?
Yeah, so a couple of the tips that I touched on was evaluate how others see you. We talked about that a little bit because in order to know how to build your brand, you need to see where you're currently at. Embracing networking is also something that I recommend students do. So I know people mentioned that like it's kind of hard to do so, but you have to start somewhere to keep that going. Some other things are figure out your target audience. So who are you trying to reach? That's also very important. So you can make sure that as you begin to build your brand, you're reaching the proper people. I would also say some of the more important things to think about when you're doing branding as well is to make sure you're using the right profiles and the right digital media and knowing that. So a lot of people know about Instagram and Twitter, but they don't know how to use it in a way that can help build their professional brand. So that's important as well. And then just making sure that you're keeping things up to date and that you're always cleaning up any discrepancies and making sure you're keeping up with what's going on. Those are some tips that I would say. Making sure you're doing industry research as well. That's key to making sure your brand is as accurate as possible. And we did have a question come in, Sandy. So I want to switch and answer that. If a student has a LinkedIn profile but is not comfortable posting comments or articles, what other options are there to remain active? I think that's a really good question. I believe most of what I've seen people do on LinkedIn is to post relevant articles and relevant things that they see. Um, but to remain active, I think goes back to making sure you're updating your individual profile. So maybe you're not a person that likes to post a lot or go on a lot of other people's profiles, but by making sure that you're keeping your profile active and up to date, it shows that you're keeping up with things. Also checking out some of the groups that are on LinkedIn so that you can get knowledge. Maybe you're not comfortable posting at first, but you can see what others are posting about, so especially in your targeted industry, so you know what to be on the lookout for. I would say you can also use LinkedIn to watch videos, to get tips on certain things. So there's other ways to utilize it without having to actually post comments under people's things. It's a little bit different than Facebook in that regard. And I think just giving yourself time to maybe get comfortable with using the platform is also an option. So I hope that answered the question, Tanya. I hope that helped.
Yeah, I think it was really great too. I think we also mentioned earlier that you could also use LinkedIn to connect with other people as well. So continuing to grow your continue to grow your network and connect with people, you know, adding to your network on LinkedIn is another way to remain active as well.
And here's the thing to consider, because this has happened to me on LinkedIn. It may be hard to actually reach out to someone, but if you do see a person on LinkedIn that you want to reach out to that you don't know directly, make sure you do include an intro. I get requests from people a lot and they don't include an intro, and these are people, you know, who have been in the field for quite some time. And I'm typically open to connecting with people because I feel I can learn something from them, but it can come off a bit abrupt, if that's a good word to use, when you get a request from someone and you don't know who they are. I tell students, think about your Facebook profile. If you get a request from someone that you don't know, and you guys have no mutual friends, and this person just pops up and they don't say how they know you, you're not going to be inclined to want to accept them. So the same goes for professional platforms. Make sure to introduce yourself. It doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to be drawn out. It could just be simple. Hi, my name is Dory. I'm a UIC student studying, you know, psychology. I came across your LinkedIn profile and I see that you're a professor of psychology at UIC. And I see that you also have a clinical license, which I'm interested in obtaining. Is it okay if I connect with you? You know, and then let them reach back out, and then hopefully if they initiate the conversation, it makes it a lot easier for you to feel comfortable asking your questions.
Yeah, I think that was a very good add-on to your previous answer right there. So that was good there. So we're towards the end of the session right here, but if anyone has any questions, please go ahead and submit them and we'll get to them. And then, well then, Dory, do you have any, again, going back to my previous thing, any other tips for students looking to start and improve their digital branding?
Create your LinkedIn profile if you have not done so. I would say now is the time to clean up some of your social media. If you haven't gotten a chance to go back and look at some things and see what other people can see, this is the perfect time to check out privacy settings on platforms, become familiar with the different types. The ones that we talked about today are just the more popular ones, but there are probably a lot more that are industry specific that you can check out as well. Start to take some time and evaluate your skills that you have, the attributes you already have, and maybe write a list of ones that you would like to build upon in order to start creating a brand that goes with what you're looking to do. This is also a great time if maybe you don't know what you want to do, you're undecided, to kind of take some time to explore your options, see what industries you might be interested in. This is a great time to do those informational interviews about them. If you feel comfortable enough to do so. I think the best thing to do to order to build a successful brand is to get as much knowledge as possible. Knowledge is the key to making sure that you are reaching who you want to reach and you're branding yourself properly. Because how can you reach your target audience if you don't know what your target audience wants from you? Marketing is all about consumers' wants and needs at the end of the day. So you market to a consumer's want or their need, and you market yourself as the best possible, supply for that. When we think of professional branding, when you think of branding yourself, it's the same way. You want to market yourself to your industry, to your specific field, based off what they want, their wants and needs out of candidates and out of people that they employ or hire. So understanding that is going to be the key to having your successful brand as well. And I would just say not to be too stressed about it. Building a professional brand takes time. The brands we talked about today did not get to where they are overnight. It took trial and error, things working, things not working, for that to happen. Excuse my cat, guys. Sorry about that. That's who's crying in the background. So my apologies. But those are some of the best tips that I would have for you guys for today. Be patient with yourselves. Just keep, consistently building and working and adding to your already existing brand. And if you don't have one at the moment, start to create it in the now while you maybe have some downtime. Are there any other questions from you guys on today? I hope Sandy and I have been helpful in answering your questions in regards to digital branding. Please, I think we have a few more minutes. So we have a few more minutes if anyone else has any more questions.
Dory has also put in the chat some resources available to you students in terms of doing any sort of career advising appointments, resume reviews. You can reach out to both Career Services or Student Employment for those type of options. She has the phone number for Career Services there, and I also put the email addresses for both offices. So feel free to reach out if you guys want to do any sort of thing, advising sort of things.
Yes, so the Office of Career Services, we are still open and we are still taking appointments. You can decide if you want to see us via Zoom, how we've done this platform today, or we can do it by phone. So if you guys have any additional questions, please feel free to reach out to us. Of course, Student Employment can also help you with anything, so I'm sure Sandy would love to answer any of your questions. And we just thank you guys for coming out today and actually participating in this live chat with us. We were definitely trying to find a way to keep you guys in the loop about how to continue to do things while, we're limited. So hopefully this was helpful for you.
Yes, thank you for that, Dory. I hope it was really helpful to you guys too. We really thank you for coming out and engaging with us. There is going to be future webinars and live chat sessions that are going to be hosted by this CareerIgnite series. So go ahead and visit the Career Services website for more information. Student Employment is also going to be doing a live chat session as well, so you can check out our website for that information. And then if you have any questions, again, feel free to connect with us through phone or email. We would be perfectly happy to help you out with any questions that you may have.
Yes, and we also are going to possibly be doing an Instagram takeover, so check out for that as well. We're trying to reach you guys through all of your platforms, and you can email us if there's anything that maybe we haven't touched on that we could possibly touch on in the future for you guys. We just want you guys to know that we're here for you, and we do have resources available for you if you would like to utilize us, okay? So I think we're going to be wrapping things up pretty soon. If you didn't, get a chance to ask a question, you can email us individually. But we just want to thank you guys so much for coming out today. Sandy, did you have any last words?
No, I just gotta say thank you guys and have a nice day and stay healthy.
Yes, please stay healthy. And please take care of yourself during this time.
All right. Bye, guys. Have a nice day.